years old, and I'm going to show you about my new Fit 14-inch bike.
Dude, that was a good one.
And this is my dad. His name's Dad.
Yes,
Obviously.
I'm Dad. My name is Dad, aka Johnny. I'm going to tell you, Connor's going to tell you what he likes about the bike. I'm going to tell you why we bought the bike, because there are some things about this 14-inch bike that are a little bit different than some of the other 14-inch bikes on the market, which doesn't necessarily make it better, it just makes it better for Connor.
Oh, and yesterday was Halloween, so yeah.
So we're all pumped up on sugar! So what do you like about the bike?
I like that this is closer to the wheel other than that one, farther apart.
So he's talking about compared to his other bike, his Colt. He likes that you have a shorter change stay, so the distance between the spindle and the rear axle is a little bit shorter, so about an inch shorter, which means that the bike's going to be a little easier to manual, and then overall there's a shorter wheelbase between the front axle and the rear axle, which means that for doing tail whips it's going to be just a little easier to throw it around, even though this bike, being a chromoly frame compared to the Colt's aluminum frame, it is a little bit heavier, but with this specific geometry, while riding the bike, the rider doesn't really notice it when doing certain tricks. Would you say that's about right? Yeah.
Yeah. And another difference is that this one has brakes and that one doesn't. And this one is golden. Yeah.
Okay, so that is different right now, but that is because we removed the brakes from the Colt bike, right? It does have an identical caliper brake setup on it. If you choose to keep the brakes on there, these brakes are awesome for little hands. They're really easy to grab onto and to pull. For an adult, not so much, but you're probably not going to be on here. But yeah, so these are set up for smaller hands, so they can actually squeeze things. But if you look, I mean, these are caliper brakes, so they're gonna, stop your child. We are going to probably remove these though, just because Connor likes to ride brakeless.
If you do a lot of dirt jumps, then you won't.
Right, so if you're doing a lot of dirt jumping, you should have your brakes on there. Connor's probably going to be using a 16-inch more for the dirt jumps, which has U-brakes, which are a little more reliable. If you're doing a lot of park tricks and you're throwing the bars around and throwing the bike around, these caliper brakes can tend to get shifted because you look at this, there's a single pivot point, so the whole caliper can actually get kicked sideways, and you'll have a brake pad that's rubbing on one side or the other. So it's just something you got to look out for with caliper brakes. And I know we're making a lot of comparisons between this bike and the Colt 14-inch. We're not saying that the Colt 14-inch is not an awesome bike, because it is. It's just for Connor specifically, right now this bike is a little bit better. Just things that you'll notice right off the bat with the Colt 14-inch is that it is quite a bit lighter when you pick it up, just the overall weight of it, because this does have a chromoly frame versus the aluminum frame which is on the 14-inch Colt. So picking it up, it is a heavier bike. but the geometry of this makes it feel like a lighter bike and gives you the advantage of having a little more room in the cockpit and then having a more nimble back end, just being closer to the rear axle. Would you say so?
Yeah.
Bottom line is, this is a really awesome kid's bike. If you got a kid who's between 4 years old and 8 years old, I would recommend this. Oh, here's another good point that which was the main reason that I bought this bike, was the top tube length is about 3/4 of an inch longer than his other bike, which he's getting a little bit cramped up on the 14 inch. He probably only has like a couple more months left on this bike even, but just to buy him a little bit more time on the 14 inch wheels, we picked this up just because he has a little more room in the cockpit, but then you also, have the shorter bottom bracket length, so it's just a nimble bike, and then he has more room to play around. Let's also talk about your cranks on this bad boy. So these pedals did not come with the bike, okay? These are the Race Face Chester pedals. They're actually mountain bike pedals. Connor likes these because they got these metal studs on them so his feet don't slip off. It comes with nylon pedals, which are a little bit on the smaller side for smaller feet. So everything on this bike is pretty much like a normal 20-inch BMX bike, but shrunk down for the smaller little ripper. This does have 105 millimeter cranks on it, which is also great for the little legs. A lot of times you see these BMX bikes and they got huge cranks on them. It just does not work for the little guys. You got a full-on cassette on this guy with a standard 25 to 9, so 25 tooth sprocket on the front, and then a 9-tooth driver in the rear here. One thing you'll notice is the number of spokes on this bike is quite a bit fewer than the standard 36 that you would see on a larger BMX bike. It's rocking 16 spokes. Your lighter rider really doesn't need all 36 spokes, so 16 seems to do the trick. It's a good balance between just enough strength and then keeping the bike on the lighter side. The seat here, this is not the seat that came with it. With that being said, it's a standard size seat post, so you can throw in, any pivotal or tripod seat post that you might have. Rock your own seat there, the little style. Let's see. Some of the other things that we're probably going to do to this bike.
Change the sprocket.
Yeah, right. We're going to change the sprocket. We'll put an aluminum sprocket on there. Probably a 30 tooth. He seems to like that. I mean, with the smaller tires, to get going a little bit faster, you want to throw in a little bit bigger sprocket. Downside with that is now your ground clearance is a little bit less, so it ends up getting pretty chipped up.
We're going to take off the brakes.
Take off the brakes, and we'll put on some pegs. Yeah. Alright guys, pretty much everything we have to tell you about this bike. I'm sure there's still a lot of unanswered questions, which we'd be happy to answer. If you want to hit Connor up at connor.stitt on his Instagram, we would love to answer any unanswered questions you have. We're going to go remove these brakes right now, and then we're going to get some shots Connor riding it, so stay tuned. Nice, Con Dog. There you go.
Gosh.
Dude, that was a good one. Oh, dude, try to get that whole corner. Ouch. Whoa, dude! Oh, dude, that was it. That was clean. Phew. Dude, solid run, man.
I'm doing way better on this bike. Like my grinds are way better and I have way more control.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for watching. YouTube took away all comments on kids' channels, so you can talk to me on Instagram at connor.stitt. Don't forget to get outside and get active today.